Ron.
Okay, welcome back, everybody back. Today is October 12th. This is the afternoon session. First item up on our agenda is a workshop to review Valley County Solid Waste Rate Structure Study. This is not an action item. So it's just mainly discussion today. We did have a company come in and do a solid waste rate structure study. And I think they are called Great West Engineering. And we've got the results back of that study. And I think it's been kind of interesting reading. They compare us to some of the other counties and what they're charging. But to me, the main gist of this whole thing is page, where did it go? Page, well, it's 3.4 comparison. Table 5 kind of tells the story of what's going on. If we look at the annual waste volume in cubic yards, you can see that there's a lot of differences in commercial businesses from 100 yards to 900 yards, and yet we're charging them the same exact fees. And I think that's probably what we need to really discuss today. And then I would also like to sometime today talk about how we can get these guys that are demolishing a house to separate that trash, and whether it's through a fee structure or permit or what, or just a requirement that they can't just haul in everything and dump it in front of your lap, so to speak. They've got to sort the wood off and everything else could come to you. But I need your guys' thoughts on it, because those to me seem like the two biggest problems.
I would agree. And not just the wood, but the concrete, rebar, pipe. Obviously, we got to take some pipe, but the concrete, the rebar, I think metal pipe, probably should go to the metal pile, those types of things. If we're getting, PVC plastic pipe and things like that, that's one thing, but when we're getting corrugated metal or...
Like culverts, you mean?
Yeah, culverts, or even the flat-sided corrugated metal, that'll be on a house on the outside or something, those types of things, all that stuff gets put in the mainstream waste.
So apparently when they demolish the house, they just take a trackhoe and break it all up in pieces small enough to get it in the truck and bring it all to you,
Yep, that's exactly right.
instead of being able to tear off the siding or tear off the roof or pull the metal loose from.
Correct.
Hmm.
So they'll do, usually your roof will come in one section because that was the first part of the house. Then the next section will be the rest of the house, which you're going to have the plumbing and all that, kind of stuff in there. So yeah, there's several items that could be separated out. I think when you're tearing a house down, I don't know that I would expect a contractor to necessarily, and maybe you have a different opinion, Scott, but necessarily go in and rip the drywall off of the wall and haul it out and then do the studs. I don't know what the expectation would be to that. It's very labor intensive to do something like that to some of these homes that are 2,500 to 3,000, 4,000 square feet. That would be very labor intensive to the contractor. And
So what do we charge, by the ton on something like that?
yes, and you guys have two separate rates at this point. I don't think this study covered that.
No.
No, this is basically what we're assessing on taxes based on whether the size of your commercial outfit. That doesn't address the study didn't have nothing to do with that.
Well, let's concentrate, since we're kind of on the subject of the construction waste. Let's go through that and then we'll come back to this.
Okay.
But do you know what other counties are doing? Are other counties making people break off the siding or break off the roofing? And
It's really, I would say in Adams County, they're not doing that because everything goes into a landfill. They don't have a transfer station. Payette would be the same way. I'm not 100% sure what Idaho County does down there at their transfer station. I think it's up to the individual location, how they handle that. I don't know that tearing a house down, I mean, we're probably averaging 5, 6 houses a month at least. I'd say 2 a week, probably pretty regular, depending on how many contractors there are. Or remodels are definitely daily, large remodels.
Yeah, I was gonna say that to me, it's like we're probably never gonna get the contractors if they're taking a house down completely to separate all that stuff out. Like some of them might take the metal off, but for them, that's just not cost effective. If they're going in there with a track hoe and pulling it apart, that's what they're doing. And I think that side of it is we just figure out how much we need to charge so that it's reflecting what we need as far as hauling and materials handling.
Yeah.
But on this other side of that is like, our general construction stuff that's going on. When they have a dumpster that's at the work site and it's lunch and it's, the scraps from the drywall and it's all of their wood and they bring it up and dump that in, that's easy to fix.
Yeah, that material that you're referring to, the material being dumped at like the C&D pile up on top of the hill,
Well, it should be, but what's going on is most of the time they're putting one dumpster on site and then everything from that work site goes in there.
And then
So
it gets put
rather
on
than, when you're talking about new construction or remodel versus a, demolition, like I said, I still think we're going to get to the point where we're getting the contractors on a demolition project to sort stuff out. And I don't know if that's fair to ask, but I do think that for that mixed load stuff that we're seeing that's coming in from, our regular contractors on a daily basis from the work site, whether it's, one of your dumpsters out there at their job site or their dump trailer, that we should be requiring those trailers to be sorted. Because there's no reason why they can't keep wood in a separate place.
I would agree. Yeah, like if you're talking about the cutoff ends and things like that, that could definitely be put in a separate pile so that would then go to the C&D pile up on top of the hill. But I think you're right. I think if we're doing, I would encourage the county to address though the demolition of a home, and here's a very good example of that. When roofing material comes in, it's super heavy. So what happens is they put that on the floor and we put all that material in the trailer. Instead of being able to cube that trailer out, we hit weight before it hits cube. So now we can't haul as much trash. We're hauling the weight, but it's because that material weighs so much more than MSW per cubic foot. And I believe that that's something that should be addressed. And this summer we had a couple demolitions up there that there were several trailers that went out at probably 75 to 80% capacity.
But the weight was over.
The weight was there.
Yeah.
The weight was there, but the capacity of the trailer. And so that's, yes.
We can encourage people to do that. I think we can encourage folks or, as much sorting as possible. But like I said, if you're going in with an excavator, you're not going to take the time to take the roofing material off.
No,
So
but
then-
I believe they should maybe look at the rate at being 150 a ton. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more just from it's a little bit tougher to handle that material.
Yeah.
When you've got a timber as long as this table sticking out down there, that's what actually went through the
Inside the
wall,
building,
the side of the building. We didn't know what was in there. And when we pushed the material up, that timber went out the metal siding of the building. Not that building is structurally strong, but when you put a timber through the metal, it's not going to hold up. So
No, but do you feel, Scott, that we are asking too much for somebody to say, if it's got a metal roof, you got to take that metal off and it's got to be brought to the metal pile?
no, I don't believe a metal in that particular scenario. I don't think that's too much to ask.
To me,
think
it's
better
mostly
for
the metal.
county.
If you had steel siding, which some houses do, I don't know about vinyl siding. I'm assuming that's light enough that could go to trash.
I think that would fall along the same lines as what Commissioner Bingham's speaking to, is when they've got their job trailer out there, or they've got a roll-off dumpster from Meckel, or they have a roll-off dumpster from Lakeshore, and they're putting their fall off from their drywall, their dimensional wood, things like that, and they're throwing all that in there, and then somebody brings his, trash from home and throws it in there on his, when he gets to work or something. I think that right there could definitely be something that could be addressed.
Or I was gonna say, I know there are a couple contractors that, I've seen them driving around with trailers that say wood only from a job site, and that goes to the C&D pile.
Yeah, there are several of those that do that. We also see, as working up there, we see a lot of trailers that they'll say that, but that particular load, they didn't use it in that capacity, so they used it as a catch-all. So,
how much does it cost somebody, they want to tear a house down, for you to bring in like an 8-yard, a big, okay, this is for the metal, this is for the wood, and then the rest of it can go in a dump truck and go up onto the floor? Is that too much to ask, or is that?
I think I don't believe it's too much to ask if we're talking about building, or if, you've got a small house and you've got a metal roof. I think that metal roof could be tore off, or when they're doing a roof job, they gotta, we're getting their tar paper, their shingles, the metal, everything that goes along with doing that roof, and then the boards that they have to replace, the sheeting underneath that they're replacing, all that fall off is just going right into that same trailer or dumpster. I think in that scenario, you're okay. I think when a person gets hired to go out and demo an entire home, I don't think we're going to get the contractor to put some guys up there to tear the shingles off and then tear each individual sheeting board off and then take, metal siding. Like Dave was saying, they're just going to grab and go. And I think that that's the most cost-effective way for them to operate. I think there should be a different, I think $150 a ton is maybe a little light for something like that, in my opinion.
I don't know about dimension length, if they have it under a certain length so they end up with those big timbers that do stuff like that.
That would really help too.
You know.
We have a dimensional length in our residential contracts with our folks that is 4 foot. It has to be cut down to 4 foot. So it doesn't necessarily have to fit in the garbage can, but you can't leave me a 12-foot piece of timber laying there and you want me to go throw it in my truck. That doesn't work. So it has to be, cut down.
I don't know, to me, it seems like you tear a house down with a track wheel, a lot of that stuff, if you have a thumb, you can shake a lot of the stuff off of it. You can pull the roofing off, if it's metal roofing. Asphalt shingles, I think, are just gonna have to come as they come, but
Yeah, there it is.
any big, long strips of metal, you can pull off a building if you have a good operator. Sure, they're gonna be all folded up and smashed, and there's gonna be some stuff stuck to them, but to me, that should be sorted out and come to the metal pile. It should not go to the truck or to the
Well,
landfill.
one thing we have to be careful of with that is we can't have any wood stuck to the metal or anything like that. Anything that goes in that metal pile really, it needs to be as clean as possible.
I'm just wondering how to attack this, because if we start out just requiring any metal roofs to be separated from the rest of the building and do that first, would that help the most? Is that where the most?
No, I don't think I think Scott's onto something in the dimensional wood column where it's keeping this
Yeah.
material down to a
Use
size.
6 foot or something.
Down to a size that's manageable.
Yeah.
We don't have the room like they have in an open area at a home where they grab a roof and they've got an end dump that's 35, 42 foot long, whatever they are. And, you can put in 10 foot long.
Yeah, but you're not taking, I didn't think you're taking trucks over a 12-yard backing into the facility. They're not supposed to do that. I thought we had a policy against that already.
I am not familiar with that.
When well, I'm not gonna say names, but someone pulled in there and ripped off the top above the door, that's when we decided that, yeah, I remember that. Do you remember that, Dave? And we weren't gonna take long trucks.
There was a time when an end dump, because I had to ask, because it's 26 foot 4 inches or 9 inches or something to the top of that. So I definitely asked a few years back how in the heck that happened, because it got banged up there and it was an end dump that did it. But we have several end dumps in there dumping. That's when they tear a house down like that.
And I thought we had a policy against it. It had to be 12-yard trucks or smaller.
Yeah, that's definitely news. Maybe Summer
Yeah, because,
knows. Maybe she doesn't know because they've been. I mean, I saw end dumps in there this summer even.
Well, we were having a meeting up there, that one guy's tearing the houses down out in Wagon Wheel out there. He was coming in with those end dumps and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I do remember that.
I'm pretty sure we decided at that time that we were going to allow 12-yard loads in there. Because they had insurance, we had an insurance claim, and their insurance fixed the end of the building above the door and a bunch of stuff. We said no more long trucks.
Well, Lakeshore put up a height sign up there probably 4 years ago. We had some made up at Rocky Mountain Sign, and we went up there and placed the height signs up there. So
what happens Scott, when they can't lift it high enough to get it to come out, they just pull out and then all that spills clear out past the entrance to the building, right? It's clear out there in the street, basically.
So if we don't have, I have not ran across a truck that I've seen or heard of that couldn't get the body up high enough to get the material to come out. What I have seen is that, yes, when they back up, we have a certain line, which is actually the drain, the corrugated drain in the middle of the floor. That's the stop line for people backing into the building. So if there's trash there and they're 6 or 7 feet in front of that, when they bring that up and dump and they pull out, yes, we will have material, just by nature of how those dump, will go outside of the door of the building. That does happen.
And if we were to raise the $150 per ton rate to whatever, they're just going to charge more and still continue the same.
I think what changes though is the county will then be able to recover some of this cost for these trailers being weighted out before they're cubed out. And
It's not a deterrent for them to do it. It's just we're getting what we need to get out of it.
And there is a flip side to it. And the flip side to that scenario is we can't get weight. Some of that material that comes in is bulky and we can't compact it. So now we're going out with less weight. We're cubed out. We can't get any more in the truck. But now instead of going out at 28.5, 29 ton, we're going out at 25, 26 ton, so for me, Lakeshore doesn't gain anything from the increase in cost. That's where my suggestion is. I'm looking out for the county in this part of it, so that the county isn't overpaying or underpaying, or however you want to look at it.
You guys get paid the same whether the truck's heavy or light or what, you get paid the same, right?
No, if I can't get as much, we get paid by the ton.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. So when the trailer goes out and it's heavier, I have to haul that many more loads. So for if every trailer goes out of there at 28 tons or 29 tons, for every trailer that's coming out of there at 25 tons, 26 tons, every 10 trailers is an extra load.
Right.
So it does that trickle effect where then it's hard for us to labor to keep up with the volume that's coming through. And now we're behind because we can only haul so many trailers at a time. We can't, you know what I mean? So when those scenarios happen, it makes it difficult to keep up on the volume.
But when you take in like boards and lumber and stuff, a lot of those have nails in them.
Yes.
But yet we can't take metal roofing that might have a chunk of 2x6 that's still screwed to it. That's
Well,
where
the
I'm
reason I
having-
say that is the metal people come up and they bale it. This year they did. In years past, they've put it in and dump and hauled it away, but this year they brought their baler. So I just know that I'm sure that if there was a few pieces of lumber stuck to a few pieces of metal yearly, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if we did that on a daily or weekly basis, I think we would run into a problem. That Pacific would say, we can't take your metal because your metal has, and we can't sort this stuff off. I mean, I don't know that we would run into that, but trying to curb that possibility.
Well, I think we've got to figure out a way to teach the guys that are demolishing these houses how to do it a little bit. You don't just go in there and start on one corner and just grab everything and pull it off. You've got to go in there and grab that metal and rip it off the roof first and get it out of the way. To me, that can be fairly easy on a good sized track hoe. I don't know what these guys are using. If they're using a mini, you can't reach it.
A lot of these, I was on a job, a guy tearing down using our box. I actually ran his excavator because he wasn't comfortable with it. And he didn't have anything but a mini, and he didn't have room for anything bigger down by the lake with all the trees and, you know, just getting the equipment in there. He couldn't get anything bigger than a smaller excavator in there. So sometimes they are limited to the size of the project. And, you know, some of these bigger homes that are being torn down, a lot of them do come from around the lake in the McCall area, you know. Today, hearing what everybody said, I would go with Scott's idea and Dave's idea. That's what I would start with.
And that is,
So Dave's idea of keeping everything, you know, like if they have a job trailer, make it wood. If it's going to be the drywall and the roofing material or the whatever, that can, you know, anything that's going to go on the floor, but anything that can go up top, keep that separated. So that wouldn't necessarily fall under your demolishing of an entire house, but a remodel or a fresh build would fall under that. And then Scott's idea of capping a length of that, and I would say 6 foot is probably, or 8 foot, 8 foot sheet of plywood, or pickups are 8 foot. So I would say,
what do you do with the guy that brings in 20-foot pieces of roofing? How do you get that in the truck? I mean,
we gotta
make him cut that up into 8 foots?
Well, yeah.
To me, a roof is what contributes mostly to the weight of a house, especially if it's a metal roof.
Yeah, I'm not.
Roofs, they Bentley crunch up pretty good though.
Yeah, they do.
'Cause they can grab that roof and just crunch it, is what they do.
That's how we.
It's still
We
heavy.
fold it up and crunch it with the thumb, and we get it, or we'll have it out on the floor, and Eric's he's a magician with that track hoe, and he can really make things a lot smaller. What I refer to as big material is like that timber that went through.
Yeah, but
And that-
that's some big house with a bunch of beams and timbers in it.
Yeah,
Older houses with full dimensional wood, in them,
yeah.
and they're coming in with 15, 16-foot beam they tore out of a house and then.
Yeah, because you're not crunching that up on the floor in there.
No, I can't crunch that. That's
No.
too big. So, a lot of
Pick
these
it up,
homes.
swing it around, put it in the rig is,
Yeah. Sometimes you got to kind of maneuver it like in that pit. I don't know if everybody's familiar, but that pit actually has a triangle
Yeah.
protection across it.
Uh-huh.
And then the trailers actually have support bars that go across every so many feet. So sometimes Eric has to grab that thing and kind of swizzle it through there and play a little Tetris and get it in there, So.
Me, I would think if you got a big log or a beam like that, it has to go up to the burn pile.
That's where the excavator just picks it up and sets it back in the truck for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then that brings up the other subject of the building not being big enough for us to be able to pick that out, for us to be able to take it up there. We don't have room in that building to take out 5 or 6 long timbers and set them off to the side and try to, and then it's getting them up the hill.
haul them up there.
Huh?
The contractor can
Yes,
step
sir.
them out at the job site,
Yeah.
haul his smaller dimensional stuff to the floor, and then his beams go up to the burn pile.
That's the way I feel about it. I mean, just to go in there and start mashing everything together and bring it to you guys, it's like, oh man, that's not gonna work.
You know, all the foundation, concrete in there too? Are they separating that out?
Not always. And that was something that came up actually during pre-dump day week. Eric was out ill that week, and I was up there every day working, and a guy dumped a big load of mixed everything, and there was some chunks of concrete in there that were almost as big as this table. Not the whole table, but this half of the table. And I went down to the girls at the scale shack and I said, we can't take that. And Summers' reply was, we have never turned anyone down or away, that they can dump anything they want on the floor. And I said, oh, okay. Like that hasn't been a set rule, but that is something that should be not accepted there.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's hard for the attendant to know what's coming in.
Correct.
It's in a trailer or a truck or whatever else.
Right. But they don't know that if they were to see that they can tell them, oh, we can't take that on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Eric had to pick that up and put it in my bucket, and it was about all that 544 could do going up the hill so I could haul it back to the concrete pile. It was as big as my bucket. I couldn't get anything else in it.
I don't think any concrete shot should go on the floor.
That's what.
I mean, once you clear up a house and you got that foundation, break it up, that should, there
Go
shouldn't
to
be
a
any
s-
concrete being put on the floor.
I agree with you
No
100%.
big loads with concrete in them or anything. No concrete goes on the floor.
So I'm writing this down as
That's
we're
when we
talking.
get the rebar sticking out. And that's what, a lot of times, things will hang up in our trailers when we get down below. It's a lot of that dimensional wood, those floors. Payette doesn't have a tipper, so the trailers we buy all have walking floors. And if something hangs, that whole load hangs and it won't come out, and it makes it difficult to get it out. We've actually had to haul them back up here to be able to loosen it up.
Loosen that up.
Yep, because they don't have the equipment down there, so then we're basically hauling that trailer twice. Between freezing and that scenario there, we probably do that a half a dozen times a year. Between our trailers, the garbage freezing in there and not being able to unload it, we have to bring it back up here and thaw it out and take it back down the next day. And then the dimensional stuff not coming out, and we have to rework the load.
We've got down separate longwood, separate cement, and separate metal roofing. What else is a problem? Carpet, all that stuff's okay?
No, that's fine, yeah, carpet's good.
Asphalt shingles?
There's no place to put them, but in there.
There's no place to.
And there are several contractors that do a very, very nice job of bringing just that in, bringing just the the asphalt shingles in. You know, they'll have tar paper or whatever, but they do a really nice job. And when it dumps, it's actually a really nice pile, and it's easy to push. It's easy to maneuver. So that stuff's really nice. There's several contractors that are good about that.
So if we decide to do this, what do you think will happen is these guys will get dumpsters and they'll sort it when they're tearing down an old house and put the wood here and put the metal roofing in that one and put the concrete in this one? Or do you think that will work?
Well, I think when they drive up to the transfer site and they're told they can't dump their concrete and their 12-foot timbers on the floor, I think they're going to soon realize that they're not going to go anywhere else. You know, they have to get rid of it. They're just going to learn that that's what they got to do. And yeah, there's a little bit more labor in that, but it's ruining the county's floor. It's hard to handle the material in that building. It's hard on the building every time something goes through. That's not the first time we've had something poke through the walls, you know, a timber or a metal, you know, of sorts. We've had pipe go through the walls. We've, you know, several things. The only other thing that I would say would be something to address as far as what we take up there are propane bottles. Empty propane bottles are fine to take, but the valves have to be removed. And I think that should be on the consumer bringing it up. I feel that we don't have the specialty equipment to check to know whether or not there's anything in that. And the metal recycler will not take the propane bottles unless the valve is removed or there is a hole in it. So they can go target practice and up in the mountains somewhere and put a hole in it and bring it in. But bringing it in with the valve, I think we actually had a scenario about 3 years ago. Eric didn't know it was in the trash, grabbed a propane bottle. It was a large 50-gallon propane bottle. And when he grabbed the trash with the thumb, the valve popped off and it shot like a rocket. And the only thing thank God it was after hours, nobody was in there, and it hit the concrete wall barrier. And then we had to have the fire department up there, of course, because there's, you know, propane. You could smell propane outside the building. So we had them come up to make sure that we weren't in any danger loading it. But that would be my biggest thing is and we get several of those bottles. We've got a pile up at the metal pile of where people will go up and they'll throw them in the metal pile, and Pacific actually separates them out and puts them in a pile. So I think that should be on the people dropping it off. They need to know that the valving, or it has to have some sort of hole in it.
So Scott, how would we do this? Is this be through a ordinance, or is this through just a PR campaign, or trying to figure out how do you train these guys who are demolishing these houses to do it the way we want them to?
Personally, I think we start out by doing education and then we turn it into an ordinance. We give these guys a little bit of time to start figuring it out. Say, hey, you know.
Website and get it out in the paper.
I think if you put a sign up,
Signage is up there, you know, they come up, you know, no dimensional beams or lumbers over 6 foot allowed on the floor. Signs, no concrete on the floor, period, you know.
including cinder blocks,
Yeah.
things like that. I am making some signage. I'm working with Rocky Mountain right now to make some signage as you come up the hill and as you get up to the piles with arrows directing people, you know, kind of where you go. If there's something that you guys would like me to add to those signs, it's not something we have to put in place, you know, next week, but you guys decide that, hey, the first of the year, this is what we're gonna do, then we can get those signs, we can add these new rules through the signs, and if there's an ordinance that is passed prior to that, we could add the ordinance number to the signage, so.
Kind of like Dave's idea, let's educate first, do it with signage and a website. But
Phase it in as an ordinance, yeah.
And then as we get down the road, we're gonna see what the problems are gonna be. And I'm pretty sure we have a limit on 12-yard dumps backing in there. But I don't know where I would find it, but I know we talked about it years back about. And because I got a call from one of the guys at this end of the valley, all mad because he had to take that home and reload it in a 12-yard truck. And I said, yeah, because the last guy that brought in a long trailer took the front of the building off.
Yep.
So that's why we did that.
Well, I don't think you'd have to necessarily refine that, Commissioner Hasbrook. I think that you could, as a council, working with Scott, you guys could decide that's the rule, whether it's old or new, and put that up there at the, just tell the girls, if it's over 12 yards, I'm sorry, we can't have it in the building.
And I think that's easily doable. So let's confirm and then we'll move on to the study. We talked about longwood, cement, metal roofing, and metal culvert. Anything else anybody think of? You guys, when they bring it in, do they bring in like all the house wiring and the breaker panels and all that comes into with it usually?
Usually.
Wow, what a waste.
Yeah, usually. Not that you necessarily see all of that stuff because it's in a million pieces, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you'll see wires here and there and what have you. We did have, we've had scenarios where a guy dumped and it was a manhole that was still stuck, the concrete was still stuck to the manhole. And when it rolled out of the guy's trailer, it hit another patron, ripped his pants, ripped his leg. So
Ooh,
there's things like that really it's MSW. That's really what they're coming up there to dump when somebody brings up their stuff. But I believe the girls charge when it's not just MSW and it's other materials.
okay, we're gonna move out of time, so we got that part done. Let's move over to the study, and everybody's got a copy of that. My thing that I learned on reading this is that the average homeowner produces about 25 yards a year. That's the guy with one 90-gallon tank, according to this.
Got a 95-gallon cart with service once a week, 52 weeks a year.
So to me, it seems like, okay, if you have two of those, then you should be charged for 50 yards. Three of them, my question to you is I see some of them go up to like 4 or 5 of those. Is there a point when Lakeshore says, no, we're not gonna bring you 5 green ones anymore, we're gonna bring you a 1 yard or 2 yard?
There is a point where we suggest and highly encourage. And then it becomes, we can't do it, for whatever reason. There's 2 places that I can give you right off the top of my head. The first one is the McCall Mall, where Chapala's and the Chinese restaurant is. They actually have no space anywhere for a dumpster. So they have 6 95-gallon bear-proof carts that we service. In the summertime, we actually ended up having to service them every day.
Oh.
They're so full that these trucks they're not gentle when they dump a can. And you can't keep sloshing food from spilling, and it would get on the ground, and the city actually had 2 people fall. One person on a bicycle, I guess the front tire went out from underneath them, and a couple people got hurt. And we are not they do not have a space to be able to put a front load container down there. So we have to service them with that. The other one is a landscaping company off of Garden Lane, and they cannot have a front load truck too heavy to come down there and go across the culverts to empty them. So we have to, so they have 3 or 4 95-gallon trash cans.
But they're probably still paying the same rate as everybody else.
They're paying the commercial rate, yes. But they only get service once a week. I think where you run into, when I first spoke to Gabe regarding this scenario, this was more on the commercial side of things, not the residential side of things. This was,
That's the purpose of that, was
yeah,
looking at, we have grandmas over here paying $330 a year in taxes, and we have Shore Lodge paying $330. It's not a fair deal anywhere around it. You know, they've got compactors. You know, we got places with compactors and stuff that are paying the same yearly tax fee on their deal as the little place across the road or the coffee shop down here. So the idea is try to make an equitable deal so that it's fair, you know, across the board and stuff.
And the only way we could really do that, though, Scott, to me, it seems like, is Lakeshore's gonna have to say, this commercial business is doing, you know, just like you said, we're dumping 5 a day every day versus, you know, one for this commercial once a week. We need to have that ability to say, okay, what is it, how much is this commercial doing?
Well, that's what, you know, they did. They went, you know, and asked for it, some of that information, you know, size of container and frequency, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's in this, like, what is Tamarack? Do they have 2 compactors now? 2 or 3?
yes.
You know, they have one, Albertsons, Shore Lodge has one, Ridley's has one, and a roll-off. Ridley has a roll-off too, they use too.
Yeah, that's on the well, there was some construction going on there, but nobody has for this study, those places have compactors.
Yeah.
Some of them have roll-offs for cardboard,
Yeah.
but that doesn't fall under this. What I would say is that, you know, when this was set up, you know, most every county in the state of Idaho has a solid waste fee that is included in your annual property taxes, as we all know. And we all pay the same rate as a resident. The resident that has 2 cans, that impact is very minimal. The business that has a compactor that's compacting 125 yards compared to the 30-yard compactor that it is, that's a lot of material coming in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say on average, Shore Lodge is somewhere around 4.5 ton. Ridley's real close to that 4.5 ton.
4.5 ton a week.
Every time we dump it, which is Shore Lodge is twice a week. Albertsons is once a week.
So Scott, how do we get that information so that we can sit down and say,
Well,
we
that
know what
information.
these businesses are creating?
So that's what they did with this study. Now I don't see on here a compactor. Yeah, I don't see a compactor on this study, on this particular part. Oh, compacted commercial is that's a rollover from another.
If you get to commercial number 7, that's uses their own garbage compactors as large grocery stores. So
Yeah.
when you're getting into the category 7 on page 7, then at that point, even with that category 6, they may have a compactor. Yes, even category commercial number 6. looks like a combination compactor and possibly loose,
We kind of talk about it, but I was going to say, to me, it seems like, we got our basic rate, and that chart that they have for the different categories kind of addresses it, but not completely. But here's your rate. This is what it includes. This is a once a week dump. And if we have to come back and get your garbage twice a week, then it goes to the next category. I don't think they really say that in this study, but that's, I think, the direction they're kind of, there's room for that sort of interpretation, I guess.
Yeah, and there's
You know what I'm
some
saying? And so,
businesses-
like, if
Yeah.
you're talking about the Call Mall and they have their busiest part of the year during the summer,
Yeah.
you're dumping 3 times a week. Obviously, that puts them up, at least one category in this chart.
Right, and there are some places that we will service more than once a week in the summertime. For instance, McCall Mall, they used to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now it's an everyday thing. Now they're going to go back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes Shore Lodge will be 3 days a week, in the busy time, and winter time we're 2 days a week. So really, it goes with the influx of the tourist season. This is a tough one. But
So-
there are certain businesses that, your larger businesses, your Maverick, your Shell, I think Miners was even mentioned on this one.
yeah.
Miners is, I'm not sure they've got a 3-yard, but they only have one, so I don't know why it says 3 yards. They're once a week. Cafe 634, for whatever reason, they don't have a dumpster. They choose not to have one, and we don't have, in the city of McCall, there's no enforcement for that.
So they haul their own, is what they do?
No, they have 4
They
cans.
have 4 cans.
Yeah, they have the 4 cans that we service a couple times a week. So
So Scott, would the county have access to that data? Because this is really, to me, it seems like it's gotta come from you as far as, I don't know who has a compactor. I don't know how many yards Albertsons or anybody does. All I know is that $330 a year is a hell of a deal. But for grandmas, it's not.
correct.
And the only way we can get that data is from Lakeshore.
Correct. And so when they approached us for this, there is some data that we didn't have. And then they reworded the request. We did provide as much data to them as we could. I don't know if they interpreted it, how they interpreted it. That is definitely something that I can go through our commercial accounts that have dumpsters and go through and do that. And even the commercial accounts that have the 95-gallon carts.
And I think we should, because it'd be nice to know if there's a lot of business other than that 4 green carts. Hey, we need to have policy that if you have more than 2, you got to get a 1-yard dumpster or a 2-yard dumpster. That's kind of your guys' call. It's your business, but to me, this is going to stink just as bad sitting there all week in green cans as it is a dumpster.
Well, what we run into with, especially in the city of McCall, is they have their enclosure ordinance. So everything has to be in an enclosure. And if they don't have the room, because as we know, McCall is very tight, if there's not enough room for them to have an enclosure, then sometimes they're stuck having, just like Chapala's, they're stuck having cans. They can't have a enclosure. So like I say, we encourage our customers. I don't want to have to go somewhere and pick up 8 cans. That's not cost effective, from a business standpoint. I would rather them have a dumpster that I can send a front load truck in, and there's,
You just can't get the truck in there because there's not enough space.
correct. So
So we're going to have exceptions to it, and it's going to have to be
I think it's gonna be a pretty tough one, a tough call to make as far as, you know, the different businesses as you come down the way. You know, like for instance, Matt Hall down here, he has one green can and it's never full, and he gets, you know, at his business, and he gets one dump a week. So if he's paying $330, he's not getting a very good deal.
Well, that's kind of where I was coming at too, is from the same perspective, is we need you know, like a base scale. This is what you get for $330 or whatever our rate is. You know, this is one green can a week dumping. And then we just have to adjust it accordingly from there. So if you've got 3 cans and it takes you twice a week, then they have to pay more. I mean, there's a section here about like pay as you throw, you know, and if you're throwing away more stuff, then you should be paying more. I mean, you got to pay for the service. 'Cause the basic rate is just not covering that level of service.
Yeah, and when and to be clear, the rate is not Lakeshore's rate. It's
Right.
It's the county's.
Oh, right.
It's the.
But go to table 3.3.1, and they've kind of given us an example there. Up to 2 cans, $220, up to 440, up to $880, up to 4 dumpsters, and up to 6 dumpsters. And I think, you know, somewhere maybe commercial 6 would be compacted trash,
Yes.
because that's just a weight thing.
And we can definitely provide that. Here it is, right? We can definitely provide some of that information.
That's what I would need to know, so that somebody like Matt out here that's got half a 90-yard, to me, that's closer to the residential cost.
Right.
Because there's a lot of residents, I'm sure, don't have full cans either.
No, there's,
But because he's commercial, he gets automatically nailed for that. To me, that encourages those smaller businesses, what I want.
well, there's actually several businesses just right here in Cascade. You've got the North Fork Cafe there. They have 2 green cans. They're never overfilled. You know, we go through the alley there, and most of these businesses along here, like Valley Co-op, they've got a can. So they're not producing the same amount of trash as the Ridleys or even here at D9.
Mhm.
So I can go through our commercial routes, and I can put in I'll have to put it into a spreadsheet. I don't have a way to pull the data, so it's gonna be manual. I'm gonna have to do this manually.
Okay.
And I think that's where this request was really tough, because they were requesting, and we didn't have a way to pull all of that, because we don't have a way to pull that out of our system. So, but I can definitely go through that. We're only talking about Valley County, so we're not talking about everybody.
And then also as part of that, and I appreciate you being able to do that, part of that too as well is, I think you should look at businesses that should be commercial that aren't paying that rate. Like Warm Lake and North Shore, and some of those that are just hauling it to a dumpster somewhere. Can you do that? Is that possible? Or I could almost, I wonder if June would
I'm
have.
not,
Lakeshore is not gonna have, Lakeshore
not gonna have
Disposal is
that,
not gonna
yeah.
have the information of what Valley County, who Valley County charges the commercial.
But you'll have a list of all the
yeah,
commercial.
right, exactly.
The assessor's office
Yeah.
has that information.
That's what I'm thinking, is if you provide us a list of all your commercial accounts, we'll look at who we've rated as commercial, and then we'll see what the
Right.
difference is.
Because there's gotta be some commercial, businesses. I could just only imagine there's gotta be some that haul it themselves to the transfer site. I mean, there just has to be.
And I think that's the argument we're gonna hear from Warm Lake and North Shore. If we're hauling it to the dumpsters, why should we have to pay?
Well, that's what the email we got, or, you know, North Shore out there. Well, they have receipts that they have hauled it to the transfer site. So I don't know how that individual knew they did, but.
And maybe some do haul it to the, transfer site, and that's wonderful. And and this is where I think some of the information to the citizens gets a little cloudy, is that Lakeshore Disposal is a subscription to the residents and businesses of Valley County. We're a subscription-based company. So we don't collect any of these solid waste fees that we're speaking about here. If the people decide that they do not want to haul their trash to the transfer station, they call us up and we give them whatever container they want, we give them the rate and we haul that. That's just like,
And I understand that.
just like
Yep.
your cable bill. If you want cable, you pay the subscription.
But on the other hand, Warm Lake and I'm not trying to pick on those guys, they're the only ones I know of right now, should be paying the minimum solid waste on taxes to keep the MRF open. And not
I'm
up,
sure that they do right now. They're being charged the 330.
330.
They're being
I don't
charged.
know if we are or not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. You're charging the businesses. Every business pays that, just like every resident pays their solid waste. The difference up there is that they have been able to use a transfer site that was set up for residential, to be more convenient for the resident,
For the customers.
for the customer, not necessarily a business that's using that. So that's, transfer stations, just like the one in, the one in Yellow Pine. They pay their solid waste fee of I forget what we raised, or what the county raised it to, but like 110.
Yeah, residential's 110, 330 for commercial.
Right, so the county has said, okay, you've paid the 110, but we're going to contract Lakeshore Disposal to come out there and pick it up every week. So the county pays that subscription
Right.
for those residents out there. So,
Are we trying to cover that subscription with the 110 we charge them? Or what is the tax that we charge them 110? What is that supposed to cover?
MRF.
What is that out there?
The MRF, well, I think recycling's part of that too. Anything to do with solid waste.
anything to do
The
with
burning
the waste
piles,
thing.
the tires and, we do the hazardous waste, but we usually, we used to charge for that. I think we still do unless it's free hazardous waste dump day and then we don't, but.
So we're not charging that to try to cover the hauling fees or anything else, or? What is it?
Yes,
Yeah, all that.
Well, it should
That's not
be
gonna come.
paying, it should be paying into that program.
but you also have the gate fees that assist with those costs as
Yeah.
well. So the revenue, of course, for the solid waste is the residential fees, commercial fees that the commissioners assess to the property, and then the gate fees for any other garbage that's not household related. That's the fees that are revenue that's utilized to pay for the operations of.
And I think that's where the lodges fell under, where they're a business. They're not necessarily producing household garbage to take to the MRF. They're producing a commercial garbage, right? Because, it still might be food trash or whatever, but it's their business. It's their money. That's how they make their money. And they're utilizing something that was set up for resident.
Don't you think so?
So, but yeah, and that's the same way as Warm Lake and Yellow Pine are both the same way.
And there's probably commercial in Yellow Pine that are using that same scenario. They're using the dumpsters too. But they're paying a residential rate versus a commercial rate versus a residential rate
Right, like
on
the
their
bar-
taxes.
Like the bar back there would be paying the commercial rate.
Right. And if Stibnite ends up back there, I think we'll have a lot more trash. Yeah,
Well,
Would you be able to get the requested information from the commissioners by next Monday, or is that too soon?
that was my next question. How long would it take you to put all this together?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes.
Okay,
Do you want me back on
Mr.
Monday?
Chairman, yeah, commissioners, I
Yep,
can
yep.
put it on the agenda again for 1 PM
You need a
on
pen?
the 18th.
Scott, you need a pen?
Yeah, cap is good, but I need the part that writes.
You want this part? That's, and then Scott, our Scott, you work on the signage and all that stuff as far as, the website stuff as far as letting these guys know on health tear downs, these are the new requirements.
And signage and stuff up there.
Mr. Chairman, do you also want Scott to talk with the assessor's office to find out if they can provide a list of,
Okay, if he wants to do that too, that'd be great. Talk to June and see if she could come up with a list of all the commercial businesses.
it's actually gonna be Dee Dee, Scott?
Dee Dee, okay. And I don't think anybody's there today, but you might check. They might have been to lunch.
List of all commercial properties.
So just to be clear, what we want is the business name, what they have for a container, and how often they are serviced.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. And I think what we're gonna come down to is that those places that don't have enough room for a big dumpster, we're gonna have to charge them the same as if they had a dumpster. Whether they
I think
have,
you would charge them by volume.
yeah,
It doesn't really, I can equate the 95-gallon can into a yardage dumpster. Yeah, if that makes sense. So if you have 4 cans, I can tell you what that is for,
okay.
what size container that would be if it was a regular dumpster.
The issue I think we're gonna have later on is, okay, I get all this trash in the summer, but in the wintertime, I don't have any trash. And that's where we're gonna have some rub on some of this, but
I think you're gonna get some on that, but everything's growing.
oh man.
So
If we get up to 17,000 tons, wait till it gets up to 30,000 tons.
I can tell you if it's 30,000 tons, I'm probably not gonna have any hair left. So
You're gonna have
you
trucks,
guys are gonna have to build me a really big building.
yeah, we're gonna have to get ready for it because in Tamarack, it was 32,000 ton a year before they crashed.
Yeah.
So it's coming again.
Yeah.
So, and that's my goal, is to get enough in the fund somewhere where we can start talking about building another floor somewhere. Maybe one right beside that one and use them both.
That's what we would like to see happen, is, right next to it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you just gotta run it through fast.
Yeah.
We're taking too slow to get it loaded, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
Scott, one more thing before you leave. Are you gonna advertise that your rates are going up so people will know? You guys will handle all that, right?
Yeah, we'll cover that. However, there's a process that we go through doing that.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that it hits the web or the paper or something so people know.
Yeah, I was gonna take your suggestion of the first of the year, to Chris and chat with him on how we wanna, approach that. I just haven't had a chance to talk to him. I'm gonna talk to him tonight here in a couple hours when I get.
Okay, all right, thanks you guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're
Thanks,
running
guys.
a little late, but we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, which is,
What?
You need to stay here.
About 2:30.
nope, it's 2:00.
Okay.
So we're gonna I'm gonna make a motion, we go into an executive session per Idaho Code 74-206-1B. This is employee evaluation. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Moved and seconded by roll call.
Freeman, aye.
Hasbrook, aye, and Doug, we're in at